I used to be a big NFL fan and watcher, Washington, long time suffering Washington sports fan, but now I hardly watch at all. But you actually, Saagar, picked up on this story, which is, I'm quite shocked and disturbed by the whole situation. So quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa, he was in a game on September 29th, it was a Sunday, against Buffalo. And he was hit and he falls back and he gets up and you can see him shaking his head and then he stumbles. Clear indication that there's been a head injury here. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. I'm gonna explain it as this is happening. So you see him fall back, hit his head on the turf. He stands up here, he's shaking his head. He's trying to run back, and then he stumbles down to his knees. Now, this is and his teammates sort of like grab him to hold him up there. You can tell he's really sort of like lost motor control in that moment. Again, clear sign of a head injury, which is why immediately personnel run onto the field and they take him off to be evaluated. However, in spite of the fact that he's had a clear sign of this gross motor issues, clear sign of a concussion, he is brought back in after halftime and continues the game. Now, already this is a problem because—
Huge red flag.
Yes. You know, they have these concussion protocols, and one of the things they point to is this gross motor instability. If you demonstrate that, it's supposed to be what they call a no-go. However, within the concussion protocol, they had this loophole where if your team doctor, who is kind of incentivized to get the guys back on the field so the team can win, because ultimately that's all they really care about. If the team doctor and an independent neurologist evaluate you and say you're good to go, then you can override even those no-go symptoms that are a clear sign. Anyone, you don't need a medical degree to look at this video and say, this guy had a head injury. Then it gets so much worse because after that Sunday game, Tua's team, the Miami Dolphins, is then set to play in this Thursday night game. And even before the game, you have Chris Nowinski, who's an advocate for Concussion Care. He tweeted, let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. If Tua takes the field tonight, it is a massive step back for concussion care in the NFL. If he has a second concussion that destroys his season or career, everyone involved will be sued and should lose their jobs, coaches included. We all saw it. He's talking about that concussion from the last game. Even they must know this isn't right. And sure enough, during this game, the worst possible thing happens. Tua, let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. Tua drops back. He is sacked. He takes a hard hit on the back of the helmet. And what you see here with his hands in these unnatural positioning, they call this the fencing response. He hits his head in the same exact place where he had had trauma previously. And now he has this very clear, serious brain injury. When you have that fencing response, I went deep on this, by the way, guys, that indicates that you have probably suffered brainstem injury. He's on the field for 12 minutes. They stabilize him. They take him off. They examine him. They say, yes, he has a concussion. And by the way, then after a few hours, they put him on the plane to fly back home with his teammates. But the whole thing, to watch it unfold, and I want you to understand why this is so incredibly serious. Because, look, concussions are serious in any event. But the real issue here is when you do not allow the brain to heal. If you allow the brain to heal, it goes back to more or less normal energy levels, and you're able to sustain, another injury and be able to recover in a normal fashion. However, if you do not allow the brain to heal, you can have something called second impact syndrome. Number one, if the brain is still injured, then you are much more likely to get another concussion. And number two, even if it is a minor brain injury, it can have compounding effects where it can literally go so far as to putting your life in danger. It can be fatal, and it can also cause severe, lasting brain injury, which we don't know is something that Tua could still suffer here. So that's why it is so grave.
No way to know, and I think the real culprit here are the doctors who cleared him and the incentives and the pressures within the NFL at the team level and all of that allowed this guy to put himself in danger. I mean, I also want to be clear. He probably wanted to play, but also, whenever you're in that altered state of mind and
well,
more.
the players have to be protected from
Right.
themselves,
They should
too.
sometimes may have to, and that's exactly the point of all these regulations. After all the discussion of of CTE and more, my friend Andrew Huberman put out a very useful thread on this, and what he talked about, he himself is a professor of neurobiology at Stanford Medicine. What he says is that there is no way to immediately assess the connection of a concussion or TBI in the hours or even days after it happens. You need 1 to 5 days to determine all of the consequences of the head hit. So to have somebody just be like, yeah, you're good to go, like clear you so-called within minutes, that goes against everything that is known, at least with, again, this is a professor at Stanford Medicine, and saying assessment needs to begin immediately, but determining that somebody is, quote, safe to play needs days of monitoring to decide that accurately. So the fact is that whatever their so-called protocol was is not rooted in any actual medicine as a person who understands and studies concussions would understand it. Now comes, though, the prediction by Nowinski, which is that the suing, the downfall of the NFL, and the team. Now we are beginning to see at least the signs of a concerted cover-up. Let's put this up there on the screen. That so-called independent neurotrauma consultant who evaluated Tua was fired yesterday. That's why we're covering it now today. And it's a little bit complicated because the person was employed with the NFLPA, so like the Players Association, and the way that their concussion protocol has it, that the NFL Players Association said it had the right to dismiss the consultant. So the consultant himself didn't necessarily work for the team, but the team and the NFL and also the Players Association is trying to point the finger at him for saying he's the one
kind of making
who
him
screwed
the
up.
fall guy.
Exactly. He is clearly, because did the coach say, hey, we really need them? Like, okay, even him. I mean, look, if I walk into a hospital with a brain injury, are they going to take, my declaration that I'm ready to walk out of there seriously? No, of course not. Like, that's standard. And so, did they listen to pressure from him? Then the real decision, which is to play him in the second game after the short week, after already suffering a problem. And I personally feel sick watching that. Like the retraction of the hands. I've been around people who've had seizures before, and I've watched that. So like immediately, like when you see that, and or if you ever watch UFC and you see a guy get knocked out cold, something like that, it's sickening. To kind of see it. And, the entire country is really riveted and fixated on the story because I think it just shows you that a lot of these guys will go to the ultimate ends of pushing these people, basically for our amusement. And I'm sure they're getting paid, but putting them in immense harm's way.
It's profit above everything else.
It is profit.
That's ultimately what it is.
Yeah, and they just want to obscure the reality. I mean, they should just be clear with us. They're like, yeah, look, our players, let's be real here. They're going to suffer a lot of brain damage. They get paid a hell of a lot of money. The issue comes from people who are in the pipeline, high school players and college players, guys who have no chance of ever going into the NFL. The person who actually told me about the story himself is a friend of mine. He himself suffered a concussion while he was a college player.
Wow.
A bad concussion. And his coaches were like, hey, we need you. He wasn't even on scholarship. And he had no chance of playing in the NFL.
Well, and that's
they
the other
wanted
thing.
him to keep playing. He's like, no, I'm quitting. I have to save my brain.
Wow. Well, good for him.
Yeah.
But these guys are warriors.
Yeah.
They're trained to, part of their training is like to be fearless and play through it. And this is the culture in the locker room is like, hey man, you good, right? Like get back out there. We need your ass. So that is the culture. That's why you have to have these protocols in place to protect these players. It's also important to keep in mind, I mean, you hear about the stars who were multimillionaires, who play long careers, the Brett Favres of the world, but most of these guys, their careers in the NFL are very short. Talking about a couple of years for most of these guys. Now, I don't follow football closely, but in watching the analysis of what happened here, some of the commentators were saying, the knock on Tua has been that he can't stay healthy. So he has in his head already, like, I got to prove them wrong, that I can stay healthy and I can stay on the field. So then he has this added pressure of, I got to be good, I got to get back out there. That's why you have to protect these players. Because, look, the NFL just settled not too long ago $1 billion class action lawsuit over exactly this issue, that they knew they were causing these head injuries and long-term trauma. Because again, when you really start to have an issue, it's not from the concussion. It's from not allowing the concussion to heal before the player is once again put at risk. That's really where the issue comes in. And so you had all these players alleging like they knew what the science was, they knew what the problems were, and they still push us back on the field. You're talking, I mean, Junior Seau is an example. He killed himself, and afterwards they analyzed his brain. Guess what? CTE. I mean,
and Aaron Hernandez too is like. I was talking with our guys before we came on the air. People should go listen to the Boston Globe podcast on Aaron. I mean, he already had a troubled childhood, and his own personal problems, but maybe he was always going to be screwed up, but it seems clear as hell that the CTE did a real number on his brain at the very least. I'm not going to say it blaming for his murder, but look, his suicide and the way that all went down, I mean, he was clearly off his rocker. And when they analyzed his brain, it was like, what? They said he had a brain of like an 80-year-old man.
Wow.
And he was like in his 20s when he died. I was also thinking about, Joe Rogan was talking about this recently with regards to the Brett Favre story. And he, given his own experience in the fighting world, I thought it was a fantastic point. He's like, this Brett Favre thing? He's like, that guy got knocked around for 20 years. He's like, people just make stupid decisions when they have that amount of brain damage. They're impulsive. They do dumb things. They don't think clearly. So it's not just the consequences of right now, like can he play, can he not play, can his brain heal?
Yeah.
These are lifelong for all of the people who are involved.
And the research says if you have a concussion, it takes your brain about 2 to 4 weeks to heal.
That's a long time.
They held Tua out of a game for like 10 minutes before they sent him back in. And then 4 days later, he's on the field again. So that's how long it takes. So even after your symptoms abate, you still have weeks of recovery where you need to rest and not be back in a violent sport before you should really be allowed back on the field. Now, if you then suffer a second concussion during that period, this is going to create, an immense amount of trauma within the brain. Now you're talking about months for the brain to heal. 2 to 4 months you're talking about then for the brain to heal. This man should not be back on the field again this season. I mean, that's what the science says, is that even if he's not symptomatic, even if he's saying he feels fine and his brain is going to take months to heal from this trauma. And again, when you see that, what they call the fencing response, that indicates there is severe trauma, and especially that impacts the brain stem. So this is a serious, serious issue that needs to be dealt with. And from the NFL, let's be real, the only reason they care about this is because this has been, a big issue for their business. They had to pay that $1 billion settlement. So they fired the neurologist. The other thing they did is they put out, and I think we have something on this, they put out new concussion guidelines. NFL's concussion protocol under scrutiny after Tagovailoa is hit hard again. The NFL said its concussion protocols were followed when Tua Tagovailoa hit his head on Sunday. That in and of itself, massive red flag. If that is the case, that is a huge red flag. On Thursday, the quarterback left the field on a stretcher after a second head hit. What they ultimately did to tighten up these protocols is they said that previously there was this loophole. If a player demonstrated gross motor instability, that was considered a no-go symptom, but it could be overruled by this supposedly independent neurologist and the team doctor. And oh, by the way, the team doctor gets the final say. And again, the team doctor oftentimes incentivized just to get these guys back on the field at any and all costs. So they have now said, no, we are closing that loophole. If there is gross motor instability that is witnessed, then we are not going to allow the player back onto the field during the game. And again, I think the only reason they care about this is because they are worried about the bottom line, because the other issue is the future of the sport. I mean, already I think this has started to be the case where more and more middle-class parents look at this and they're like, I'm not putting my kid in this sport. I wouldn't personally, I wouldn't let my son play football, not knowing what we know about the brain injury. And so you saw this with boxing, where boxing used to be basically like the American sport. And then because of the, injuries that are sustained and how dangerous it was, especially in terms of brain injury and brain health, it gradually stops being this like middle-class sport and starts being a lower class, working class sport. And And, that has major implications in terms of like the profitability of the game and how much purchase it has within American political culture. So this is the other thing that they ultimately worry about here. So, they don't really care about these players, their health, their future. I think they've demonstrated this many, many times over, but they are worried about the bottom line and what incidents like this could ultimately do to them there.
Yeah. Also, the coach said that he was relieved. It was, quote, only a concussion. Can you believe that?
Well, and
only a traumatic brain injury.
And the coach ultimately has the final say. I mean, you see your player stumbling around. Again, it did not take and this is the other thing. Oh, and we didn't even mention, there's so much to this story. They lied and said this man had a back injury when he's holding his head, stumbling and falling and doesn't know where he is. Anyone can look at that and say, that's not a back, he's not holding his back, that wasn't the problem, it was his head. They continue to lie about that, by the way, and say, oh no, it was a back injury in the first game. Come on, come on. So I do lay a lot of the blame here at the feet of the coach who, even if the doctors came back and said, no, we think he's good, could have said, you know what, we need to arrest this guy. This is not right. This is not okay.
Very true.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.